All right, everybody. I am Jess from Base Camp. Give me some kind of sign that you can actually hear me, like a thumbs up or okay, cool. Just making sure. Um, I am Jess from Base Camp. I am the program manager for the Career Collective, and I am so excited to have you all join us today. This is a really exciting workshop. It is called Bold Boundaries, a step-by-step path to living a life in alignment with your values. And I can't think of anything more delicious to center around as we go into the new year. Um, before I introduce Sophie, I just want to do a little bit of logistics and housekeeping kinds of things. Um, if you're comfortable, I encourage everybody to have their camera on. Seeing one another creates connection and community and makes it more like a shared space than a webinar. So if you're comfortable, even if your hair's not pretty or you're like in your closet, we would love to see your face. But if not, we respect that too. I also want everybody to feel comfortable stepping away if they need to, grabbing some water, taking care of yourself at any point. I'm sure you're not going to miss something super vital if you step away for 30 seconds or 60 seconds. I also want everybody to know that I will be recording this workshop, and tonight, following the conclusion of the workshop, I'll email everybody a link so they can watch the recording again, along with Sophie's slide deck and any kind of extra materials and stuff like that she wants you to have. Um, and I guess too, a lot of people have the Zoom etiquette, but just wanted to say that if you can keep your mics muted when you're not speaking, that's helpful, just in case something, weird is distracting or noisy happening in your space. And lastly, I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you guys have anything to add or questions or something like that for Sophie while she's facilitating, I'll make sure to keep an eye out. So if you do have a question or you want to double click on something, I can make sure it comes to her attention. All right, so that being said, I'm so excited to introduce Sophie McVickar. She is our facilitator today. She is a total badass herself, and she's gonna walk us through this beautiful workshop. Hi, Sophie.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Thumbs up? Yay! Okay, good. That's always the first thing to check on these. Thank you, Jess, so much for this collaboration and for opening the container for us. I am so excited to share this with y'all. And how do we feel about diving in today? Are we ready? Should we wait a couple more minutes for other people to come in?
I think we are at critical mass, Sophie. I think it's
Awesome.
time to start.
All right, so my name is Sophie McVickar, and today we are going to talk about bold boundaries and how to start setting them. So, if you are here, you probably resonate with being a people pleaser or an overachiever or somebody who is constantly overgiving to others but can't really take the time for themselves. Maybe that feels like too much pressure or you feel guilt-ridden. So, I'm going to open the workshop today and give you a little bit of my origin story because I could not, for the life of me, put myself first. And that changed when I adopted my soul dog, Zeal. I was at my peak people pleasing. I was burnt out. I was sick. I was working three jobs and I would have 14-hour days. And I met Zeal and I knew that we were meant to be together. And he showed me the power in demanding that his own needs be met every day. And it was so simple for him as a dog to say, "Hey, feed me, walk me, play with me, love me." But it was a concept foreign to myself because I lived my whole life in service to others. I would roll out of bed and go to work without eating or stretching my body. Um, and so he challenged me to set some really uncomfortable boundaries as I wanted to be the best possible dog mom for him. And it included a lot of uncomfortable truths about myself, where I was putting others above myself. And I got to have some tough conversations. And so I share this origin story with you because it can be really hard to do this work for ourselves. And if you need somebody, whether it's a loved one on four legs or two, to kind of be the catalyst that gets you in the door for this change and to keep going, then that is absolutely okay. And whatever it is, just know that doing the work, going through the motions of this will actually build your self-trust and confidence. And eventually you'll be able to do it for yourself, for your own well-being, for your own love of self, and for your own goals. So, whatever brought you in today, if you want to drop that in the chat, what is your why? Who are you doing this for if it's not for yourself? And as you kind of share that, I wanted to say a little note to you guys. Your worth is not tied to your productivity. And while jobs in this society are absolutely crucial, your life has much more meaning beyond your job title. So, by setting healthy boundaries around your time and energy, you are actually creating the space for yourself to thrive. And when you have more energy to do what you love, like play outside, spend time with your kiddos, and loved ones, immerse yourself in your hobbies, your entire life starts to improve. And caring for yourself first allows you to give to others more fully. And I know that kind of sounds like a contradiction, but it opens up so much. So to be more present with others, and it allows your creativity to flow more freely. So think about that as you do this work. Boundaries are essential for our health. Studies are now linking autoimmune diseases to suppressed anger, especially in nice people or good girls, that kind of conditioning to always put other people above yourself. So, with anger as the primary emotion that tells us when a boundary is crossed, it is really important to start getting curious about how that feeling shows up in your body and get more comfortable with it. All right, so what we'll do today, we'll set some goals and create boundaries to support them in our journey. Get to know your no and how that feels in your body. And then we'll create a plan for setting a new boundary and come up with scripts together to use in your journey. All
Jen,
right.
or Sophie, I just wanted to share a couple of the notes from the chat box
Oh,
here.
yes.
Jen says she's doing this for her. I'm doing this for
Oh,
me. I'm a former people pleaser who was burnt
mm.
out and then recovered and got really good at setting boundaries and somehow backslid for a majority of the year. She says that she really needs this.
Oh, I'm so happy you are here and I'm so proud of you. This is gonna be great. And it's okay to backslide. It's really easy for those patterns to kind of rear up and take root again. And we'll kind of talk about that as well. So thank you so much.
Okay. Angel says she stopped to reply. She'd like to have a family and balancing chronic illness, so acknowledging bandwidth and wanting to reflect on
Mm,
sustainability.
yes. Yes.
Yay. And we have one more I just want to read because these are like the energy of these is swelling my heart.
Mm,
Um, Emily says, as someone continuously told they're too nice,
mm.
she's ready to take control of the things that she wants to do and feel okay setting boundaries. I love that.
I love that too. Thank you, Emily. Mm. All right. So in this framework, we are working with our nervous system. And the sole purpose of our nervous system is to keep us safe. So, to our nervous system, which is developed in response to the environment of our upbringing, anything familiar is safe. So, it doesn't matter If you are trying to make a change that'll benefit you, it feels unfamiliar to your nervous system, and there can be a lot of resistance to that. So the key here is to start small and simple, and I'll probably repeat this a few times, but simplicity leads to consistency, and consistency builds confidence. We are not going to rewrite our whole lives today and start tomorrow with the strictest boundaries ever. I mean, I'd love for that type of a transformation, but that is unsafe in the nervous system. So we're working on sustainability and simplicity, and it compounds. All the little efforts that we have, that we do, that we put into this work, it'll compound into something amazing. So I'm so proud of you for being here. Another thing to keep in mind is how we frame our goals will affect how our nervous system will react. So as we move through this, it's important to get to know what a no feels like in your body and what a yes feels like so that you can set your goal and feel how that lands in your body. Is it a yes or is it more of a no? And I kind of brought this up earlier. Find your why. For those of us who associate our value with what we do and give for others, it can be hard to use our well-being. So let's look into some external reasons to start. And just know that it's okay. Starting is the most important piece here. So if you weren't modeled healthy boundaries growing up and you want to do so for your kids, that is a great reason to jump into this work. Or if you've adopted a dog, clearly I'm a dog lover here, and you want to give them the best life ever, but you tend to stay late at work every day, now is the opportunity to start setting boundaries around your time and energy so that you can be for them and be there for them and give them the best life possible. Maybe you are in a new relationship and you have a habit of betraying yourself in the early stages and kind of setting the tone for the rest of the relationship. Now's the perfect opportunity to set those boundaries around your time. If you need alone time or how you want to interact in that way. And it can be for your health. And having healthy boundaries is so great for your health because you are prioritizing yourself by setting boundaries. And that in itself reinforces your brain that you can take care of yourself and you can meet these goals. So if you are unable to tend to your basic needs with your current workload or lifestyle, hello, that was me, um, then this can be your why. But make sure it's something that lands good in the body. Maybe you just want vibrant health and you want to nourish yourself with home cooked meals. That could be your goal. And so your boundary around that is not ordering takeout or leaving work on time so that you have the time to create those meals or waking up a little bit earlier so you eat something before you go to work. So now let's kind of get in the body here. We got to get to know our no. And this is going to bleed over into our guilt-fueled yeses because they tend to feel the same. But when we have this auto response as people pleasers to just say yes, like it's almost like this like reaction, we need to pause and kind of feel in our body. So when your body says no, it feels like contractive, tightness in the chest or pit in the stomach. It doesn't feel good. A true embodied yes feels expansive and open and light and exciting. So think about the last time that you truly felt that feeling as a yes in your body, because that it might be easier to determine your no from the lack of the lightness or expansive feeling if you're so used to giving a yes out of guilt. And a guilt-filled yes is usually accompanied by fear or pressure to do something, fear that you're not doing enough or you're not good enough at your job or good enough of a friend, whatever that story is behind it. And signs of yes could be said out of guilt. You find yourself convincing yourself or others that it was actually an aligned yes. And this one I did all the time. I would agree to do something and I would talk about it for days, trying to convince myself by talking to others that it was actually aligned. Or you get that sinking feeling in your stomach or tightness in your chest. Again, that's a no. And you feel anxiety about the decision or regret it later on. And think of it as collecting data. This is just information that we need, information that we are going to use moving forward. We're going to run into times where we do say yes out of guilt, even after this workshop. Just think of it as good information and how you can move forward. All right. So now we're going to get into the actual setting of the boundaries. Who's excited? All right, so we'll go through examples of boundaries with self, with loved one, in the workplace. But the premise here is to identify a few boundaries you're ready to incorporate in your life. Write them down and name them. Having that in front of you, writing with a pen, really helps let it sit with you. And sometimes we need that reminder. And add that reason behind setting the boundary or the goal that it supports. And we'll do some with self, with loved ones, in the workplace, or with coworkers. So if you have a few in mind that you're ready, go ahead and write those down now. And the language you use is important. I like to think of my boundaries with self as small daily promises. It takes the pressure off. It's like, this is a boundary with myself. It makes it a little more fun and cooperative with myself. And by keeping the small daily promises, I'm building the trust with myself that I can hold these, set and hold these boundaries. So again, simplicity leads to consistency, and consistency leads or builds confidence. All right, drop a heart in the chat when you have identified one or two boundaries, and we'll get an opportunity to go through examples and do more. I love it. Yes. And they don't have to be perfect. All right, I'm loving this. Yes. All right, I'm going to dive into the different types of boundaries that we're covering today. So the first one is with self. They are absolutely vital. If we are not modeled how to have boundaries by our caregivers, this may have been the missing piece in your boundary setting journey if you've been on it before. I I find it really empowering to build on my small daily promises, and then I can build that trust and know that I can set and hold a boundary, even if it's with myself, and sometimes they're the hardest, that I can do that with somebody I love. Focus on your personal values as a guide for setting your boundaries. For example, if you're prioritizing your well-being, making time for self-care and connection to yourself or spirituality, build a boundary around that. I'm going to spend the first 20 minutes of my day stretching my body, not looking at my phone. And by getting to know your own needs first and creating the space to tend to them, this sets you up for success in setting boundaries in all aspects. All right, here are some examples. And this first one, let me know if this is one you've tried. Uh, how you talk to yourself impose a no bullying rule on how you treat and talk to yourself, especially when you make a mistake. If you are hoping to set a firm boundary with a loved one about how they treat you or talk to you, it can be really hard if you have the internal dialogue of a bully with yourself. So I encourage you all, if you struggle with any of that, to stop bullying yourself and make that your first boundary. It will absolutely change your life how you talk to yourself. And then another one I love is not comparing yourself to others. They say comparison is the thief of joy, and it really is. It's so easy to look at somebody's life, especially online, and think that we're behind, that we need to be doing more. So go ahead and unfollow some people on social media or mute them if you don't want them to see that you unfollowed. But have that boundary with yourself. Like if you can't get yourself to stop comparing your life to theirs, remove that until you feel more comfortable and you think you can try again. Another simple one, and this has been my small daily promise since I started this journey, is drinking a full glass of water before I have any caffeine, coffee, or matcha. And then my next step was eating a full meal before I went to work. You're fueling yourself, you're taking the time for yourself, you're showing your nervous system that it's safe to set that boundary, get up a little earlier, and make space for this. Not using your phone for the first hour of the day. This one, work up to it. If you tend to wake up and look at your phone, take 5 minutes away in the morning with no notifications. It'll feel so good. And this one's really easy to build on because if you start with 5 minutes, the next day you can try 6. And you're building that self-trust muscle that you can hold a boundary with yourself. And then building on that, mute work notifications outside of work hours. Not, don't look at your work email while off the clock. Separate that if you can. That gives you more space for yourself and builds that buffer. And I know that that's not always possible. Sometimes we do need to work after hours, but on a general principle, if you can create that space, that's really important. Leaving something unfinished when you need rest. So, who here tends to work themselves into the ground to get something done, even though they haven't eaten or they desperately need to go to bed? Yep, same. So this one is going to be particularly difficult for overachievers, people pleasers, because we want to do a good job. We want it to all be done. And there will always be something to do, something to get done, another project, always. And stopping when we need rest can be the most radical act of self-love. And coming back to it after a good night's rest might actually give you the creative energy or juice, or you'll have the problem solved just from a good night's rest or going for a walk. If you fear that you're going to forget something at the end of the workday and you're trying to get everything in, make notes about everything so you don't forget anything, try taking a 5-minute walk wherever you are because our brains work really well at 3 miles per hour. And who knows, you might get the problem to your or the solution to your problem, or you might remember something that would normally come to you at 3 a.m. All right, who here has a new boundary with self that they've written down? Drop a heart in the chat to let me know. Yes. Yes. Awesome. All right. Boundaries with self are really important and they have their own difficulty to hold, to set with yourself. Yes, I love that, Jen. Uh, Drink that water before coffee. But with loved ones and other people in our lives, we are dealing with a whole nother human with their own nervous system, their own life, their own beliefs, and their own emotions. So start small, and know that healthy boundaries with others are an act of self-love and can drastically deepen a relationship. They aren't bad and they aren't a sign that something's wrong in your relationship. They're really good. And it's important to recognize if we weren't modeled healthy boundaries as a kid or were taught our worth came from betrayal, this can feel really scary. So start small. Know that you may have to reiterate yourself a few times for the new boundary to stick. It is up to you to respect and communicate your own healthy boundaries to others. Now, I'm going to give a little disclaimer here. If you feel you might be in an unsafe relationship and you try setting boundaries and somebody continuously blows through them, I highly recommend working with a mental health professional on that because there may be something else going on there. Yes, Amber, I just saw your message come through in the chat. It is so important. We all learn from our parents. And the whole do as I say, not as I do is completely debunked because we literally have mimic neurons in our brain. So we see as kids what our parents do. And you nailed it. If you are taking time to take care of yourself, you are showing your child how to care for themselves. And I don't have kids, so I don't speak too much on this topic because I don't have the experience. But I heard something that drastically changed my perception of this. You betraying your own needs to care for your kids doesn't show them how to treat themselves that way. You are showing them that they need to betray themselves to care for their loved ones. So it is an act of love for your kids to have healthy boundaries. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's get into some examples. So, one here is if you are supporting a loved one through a tough time, make sure you're not taking on their emotions as your responsibility. You can be there for them, but how they feel is not your responsibility. So, make sure you're not compromising your own health. Maybe set a limit to how much you can offer to them, support like on the phone or in person, and make sure that you are taking care of yourself first. Taking alone time to recharge is an excellent boundary, especially in an intimate relationship. And I gave an example script here, and we'll have another section where we'll go over scripts and create them together. But you can just tell them taking time alone to recharge allows me to better show up for you in our relationship. It's all about love for yourself and for your loved ones. And then another one is not sharing personal information. We all have loved ones that may mean the best, but aren't fully supportive or understanding. So you can just tell them, I'm not comfortable sharing this information or discussing this at this time. And this one, as a people pleaser, was hard to do, not taking unsolicited advice. This was huge. I personally, like if somebody was giving me advice, I felt like I had to listen and take it. And think that has to do with the people pleasing, not feeling good enough. So somebody offering their pearls of wisdom was giving me something that I felt I didn't have. But unsolicited advice it can suck. It can feel invalidating. And if you are sharing something intimate with somebody and their first thing to do is give you suggestions, you can just tell them, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not open to suggestions at this time. I will let you know if and when that changes. And then this one, not tolerating comments about your body. Even when somebody makes a comment about your body and they mean it as a compliment, it can still feel intrusive, inappropriate, uncomfortable. And this is when you'll want to kind of get connected to your feelings of disgust or like, oh, what is that feeling? If somebody says something like that, you can just say, hey, I'm not comfortable having my body commented on, even if it's meant as a compliment. Because there are people with good intentions who blow through boundaries. And you can just tell them, I know you mean it as a compliment, but I'm not comfortable with this. All right, looks like we've got some good tidbits here in the chat.
Is there a baby in
Yes.
here?
Yes. All right. I love that,
Hi, Mama.
Amber.
Hi, baby.
Yeah, if you are getting met with a ton of resistance when saying no to a suggestion, you can say, that's interesting. I'll think about that. It's all about the nuance with the relationship with others.
Hi. Oh, I'm not talking.
Yes. I love that, Wesley. Don't shoot on me as a response to unsolicited advice. Yes. We don't should here. We don't should. All right. Did any of those boundaries with loved ones strike a chord or one that you're going to implement? Let me know. Yes. Don't should yourself either, Jess. All right, let's move on to in the workplace. My husband and dog just got home, so sorry if you hear any loud noises. That's our Hanky. Um, yeah, to check in and say hi. So, in the workplace, I just want to remind you all that your time on this planet is your most valuable asset. Full stop. Protecting your energy is not selfish. And by pouring into yourself first, you can better engage with the world around you, whatever that may be, whatever you are working on. So having healthy boundaries in the workplace benefit your employer and coworkers. It can reduce the risk of burnout. And by implementing boundaries that better support your energy, your nervous system will we'll see more cues of safety and you'll move into the state of social engagement, which actually increases productivity and creativity as well as problem solving. So it is a benefit. And I know you may be struggling with starting to set boundaries with your employer, wanting to do a really good job. But the goal here is to take care of yourself so that you can better show up in your job, in your position, in your life for others. Now, you can't control everything in the workplace, and obviously, you will have to do some things you don't want to do. The goal is to improve from your current circumstances, while understanding that the more you practice and implement these boundaries, the easier it will become. So here are some examples. Oh wait, just kidding. Jump the gun there. You want to experiment with small boundaries and survey the response from coworkers and employers. If they are used to your overgiving and benefiting from it and always being available, they aren't going to expect you to push back. So ease into it. When we start setting boundaries where we had none before, people who benefit from our self-betrayal will react poorly. Their reactions are good information. We can set all the healthy boundaries we want, but if we're in a toxic environment, it's not going to change the environment. You can protect yourself and your energy, but you can't change others with your boundaries. You can change how you let them treat you. So know that going into this, you might end up with a lot of resistance. And yes, Jess, no one that cares for you will be upset for you taking care of yourself. This is so true. And it's really important to know that going in. And if you're in a situation, which is totally common these days, where your boss doesn't really care about your well-being, this will show who they truly are. So I started with a couple small ones here because we're easing into it. Some examples. Not responding to non-urgent communique immediately. So, if anybody here uses Slack or Teams, and you'll get like a, hey, not urgent, but, or you have an email that lands in your inbox and you feel that need to respond immediately, drop everything that you're working on and respond immediately. This is your invitation to pause and ask yourself, is this something that I need to respond to right now? Are they asking for it because it's urgent? Or can I finish what I'm working on and then respond? And I had to mention in here because I used to pride myself on being a multitasker. That's been debunked. Your productivity drops, your ability, or you make more mistakes when you multitask. And maybe you're really good at it, but I wasn't as good at it as I thought I was, and all it did was stress me out and stress my nervous system out. So, focusing your attention on the one task at hand will improve your productivity and quality. So, if you have that habit of responding to every email or text or Slack message, this is this is your chance to pause and get back to them at your convenience. We're not we're not ignoring anybody or dropping the ball. We're just finishing what's ours. And Kelly, that's tough when you get messages, even when your status is on Do Not Disturb. If you can turn off notifications, if that feels comfortable, that might help. But that is uncomfortable. Mm, yes, Wesley, yes, I love that. The Eisenhower matrix. There are a lot of tools out there. And maybe this is a part of your larger goal is to be more focused at work, having a higher quality output. And a really important boundary is to focus on one thing at a time and not let your energy, your attention go in a million different places. Another great small boundary to have in the workplace is to try not to engage in conversations that are entirely negative. We've all had that coworker that loves to go on their daily rant about how much they hate their job or your boss. And it's so easy to get sucked into. In a way, it's a form of connection. But if it is weighing on you or you're not interested in being a part of it, try changing the subject or walking away if you can or going to work on something else. Give an excuse and excuse yourself. This can really improve how a workplace feels when you're constantly focusing on the negative. That's what you'll see. And we have the reticular activating system in our brain. I like to think of it as a little conductor from who is sorting all the data we see every day that we get, all the input, and it only shows us what is in line with our current belief system. So if we're constantly engaging in the negative, we're going to see more of that. It's going to show more of that. I like to use the example of shopping for a new car. When you land on the one that you really want and you're researching prices and you have the exact color you picked out, and then the next thing you know, you see that exact color car everywhere. That's your RAS working for you. You're saying, "Hey, I want to see more of this," and it's showing you that. So that's just something to keep in mind. The negativity can be so easy to spiral into, and taking that step back, setting a boundary about not engaging for yourself will really help overall. Another one is taking your breaks. If you tend to work through lunch or eat at your desk or eat on the go, not actually sitting down and digesting your food, this one's gonna be really good for you. Take a few minutes. Um, Amber, the RAS is the reticular activating system. I think of it as the conductor in our brain that is filtering out all the unnecessary data. And what we want it to focus on, it shows us more of. So taking your breaks, actually eating your meal, taking time away from work. Sometimes that's when like the creativity sparks or the solution to your problem comes to you. But actually take that time for yourself. We're here to prioritize ourselves. Another couple boundaries here that we can do is not diving straight into the array of things that need to get done right away. Giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of your week to actually structure out when and how you're going to work on certain projects and tasks based on their priority level. This can really help because diving straight in is sometimes it feels really good. You're going to get everything done, but we might not be prioritizing effectively. And if we don't have that structure, it's easier to get sucked into somebody else's sense of urgency on certain projects or responding to an email because we didn't set out that chunk of time for ourselves to be productive. And the next thing we know, we're staying late or running behind because we were doing a million different 5-minute tasks. And this one, honor your capacity. This one can feel really hard, especially if you are the top performer and you want to be the best at your job. And you kind of have that voice in your head of like, if I'm not doing everything, I'm not good enough, or that fear. This one can be really hard. So ease into it, but it can look like asking for help on a project before you get behind. For whatever reason, life happens and our productivity levels, they vary. And if you have something going on and you need help, it's okay to ask for help. And then another one is politely say no when someone asks for help when your plate is full. And I have an example in the next one, an example script for that. Um, and this one kind of goes with it. So stick to the duties clearly outlined in your job description. And this one's nuanced and layered. So if you have a tendency to pick up extra tasks and find yourself overwhelmed, try and cut down on these extras. If you're always the one volunteering to take on whatever unplanned ask comes up for your team or your company, maybe actually evaluate first if you have the capacity. And then if you do, you can take it on. But I challenge you the next time it comes up to say something like, well, I'm happy to help out with these extra tasks when I have the capacity. With my current workload, I'll need to delegate X project or whatever deliverable to someone else to accommodate this request. It's not a hard no, but it is a compromise. Yes, and I want to highlight what Jess just said in the chat, especially for women. You do not have to be the note taker or the party planner or the lunch orderer or whatever it is. Just because you are good at something doesn't mean it has to be your responsibility. Full stop. All right. Has anybody thought of any other workplace boundaries that they want to incorporate or were inspired by these?
I just want to say, Sophie, I'm particularly inspired by this honoring your capacity. And if you create that structure in your work schedule to plan things out, then you know what your capacity is. And then you can say no when you don't have time. And you won't end up working on your breaks and things like that too.
Yes,
They're all connected.
they are. They are. And it's a great way to build on these. So thank you, Jess. I'm loving these that are coming in. Yeah. Charlie, it's so easy to dive in and just lose track. And then it kind of makes it harder to not put on all the hats needed. Yes, Jen, making your time less available to grab for meetings. I love that. Yeah, that's a great way to structure out your time is blocking chunks in your calendar so that people can't grab it and you have that time dedicated to whatever you're working on and whatever your top priority is. I love this. Okay, so as a part of this workshop, I'm giving y'all a bonus tool because the best way you can advocate for yourself in the workplace is with data. And this is a great way to collect that. So if one of your goals is to reduce the extra projects or side quests assigned to you or that you pick up, because nobody else will, begin to track how they affect your core responsibilities. So in this tracker that you'll get a copy of, you'll have a place to put your core responsibilities for the week and monthly or quarterly. And every time that you have an unplanned ask, you'll add that into your unplanned ask section. And that way you can track how those extra, even if it's a 5-minute task, how that will start to impact your core responsibilities. Because again, back to the debunking of multitasking, getting pulled in all these different directions reduces our productivity and it frazzles our focus. So the unplanned asks, even if they are 5 minutes, really take a toll on your overall quality of work. And Here you can also, if you have some personal development or career goals, you can set them in the tracker. And then you can see how all of your core responsibilities or even the unplanned asks, which can be valuable, lead that path to your goal or help support you in that goal. And this can help you set boundaries around your time and energy to help you reach these goals. And it's a great tool as well to use in compensation increase conversations, or if you are looking at a dream role outside of your current company, you'll see all of the amazing things that you are doing that put you in the perfect place to be the ultimate candidate for that position. And if anybody here struggles with some like imposter syndrome, it really helps to see all that you really do for your company on paper. So I highly recommend using this tool. It's included. You'll get a link from Jess, as well as the slide deck. Okay, now we're going to practice saying no. If it's unfamiliar or difficult for you, then we're going to practice in low risk environments. We need to create affirmative experiences, that's a therapy word, to show your nervous system that it is safe to say no to people. So, great places to practice. Anybody petitioning for your signature or attention outside of a grocery store or the mall, if they want you to sign or donate, you can just say no. You may see them again, but saying no to them is going to be a lot easier than saying no to a loved one or somebody in the workplace if you really struggle to say no. Another one is when cashiers, when they ask you to round up for a certain cause. Just little things like that. Cassidy, I couldn't do it either. This was a practice my husband gave me when we started dating because I would get stuck at the grocery store talking to somebody who needed a signature on a petition I did not want to support, but my people-pleasing tendencies took over and we had a whole heart to heart. He's like, just say no.
Let's ask it for me.
Oh, I'll take care of it.
So yeah, make it fun. We're giving ourselves good experiences saying no. So give yourself a reward for saying a simple no, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a coffee or a treat at your favorite bakery. Or you can tell a friend that your goal is to start saying no and have them celebrate with you. Text somebody, say, "Oh my God, I just said no without an explanation or a sorry, just a no." And we're going to talk more about getting to know our no. So we all have this internal guidance that tells us when someone has crossed a boundary. So we need to get curious what that feels like for you, especially if you haven't been able to hold boundaries or had anybody respect them. Maybe you grew up in a household that did not respect any privacy or boundaries. You are used to pushing down that feeling. So it can show up as anger, resentment, frustration, but it may also show up as sadness and hurt or fatigue because you're not comfortable with your anger or you've pushed it down so long, suppressed it. So get comfortable with it. Get curious with it, I should say. It might not be comfortable at first. Because this is going to tell you information. Like if you haven't necessarily set a boundary with somebody, but they're encroaching on your personal space or information, and you're starting to feel like that resentment or frustration with them, maybe it's time to think about it and think about setting like a clear, kind boundary around them. Okay, so if saying no or setting a boundary feels kind of scary in the body, we need to develop some practices to soothe ourselves. So I have 3 here that we'll go through, and I highly encourage you do them with me. Even if your camera's on, we can all be cringe together. Um, One of the first ones is the self hug. So wrap your body with your arms over your chest, grab each other's shoulder, And make sure you're holding tight enough that you feel pressure on your chest. So it's like a hug. And if it's too much pressure, ease off. It might be a lot. Go ahead and just close your eyes and repeat to yourself, either out loud or in your head, I am safe. I am supported. I love this. Thank you for sharing this with me. Did that change how your body feels at all? Yeah. Were you able to drop in a little bit better? Now, if you need a more subtle self-soothing technique because maybe we're in a place that we don't want to be hugging ourselves in front of somebody or we're about to have a really tough conversation, breath work is your friend. So, elongating our exhales actually signals to our body and our nervous system that we are safe. So, I invite you to breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 8. And if 8 is too long, just try with 5, and you'll work your way up to 6 and then 7. So let's do a couple together and just see if that shifts anything. Breathe in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4 and exhale. And again, in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. In for 4, last one. Hold for 4 and exhale. So this one's my favorite because you can do it without anybody noticing in a public place, in the workplace. But you can also go to the bathroom and do the self-hug or this next one, which is shake it off. So you are going to literally picture, if this works for you, your entire body covered in spiders or ticks, which are my, ugh, and just shake it off. This, yes, 30-second dance party. I love it. Yes. It's so good for your nervous system and your body. Yeah. Yeah. It expels energy, nervous energy. It releases tension, and it burns excess adrenaline. So these tools are really important when you start to have really hard conversations, when you are so used to betraying yourself. When you start putting yourself first, it can feel really scary. So it's important to create safety in the body. So when you're setting a boundary, make sure to plan it out. Plan out what you're going to say and how you will deliver it. And scripts are great when starting this journey. As you start setting more boundaries, it will come more easily, but write it out, write out what you'll say ahead of time. You may feel the need to over-explain, especially with a loved one or in the workplace. I need you to know you do not have to, but if it feels safer to you and your nervous system, you can provide a little bit of explanation. We are creating affirmative experiences, so if it feels really scary, even with our self-soothing techniques, to set a boundary without any explanation or context, give a little. You don't have to, but if it makes it more accessible, to set a boundary, then make sure you listen to that. And then determine the consequences for a cross boundary. So if you have clearly communicated a boundary, clear line, and a loved one or a coworker continuously disrespects that boundary, you might have to stop spending time with them while they work on their behavior. There has to be a consequence to crossing your boundary without impeding on the rights of others. So the best way to do that is limit access to yourself. Okay, so right now, if you haven't already, I want you to come up with 3 boundaries with the reason behind it or the goal that it supports. If you are feeling really brave, you can put it in the chat, but there's no pressure to. And now we are going to read them to ourselves. And I want you to get connected with your body, get curious. How do you feel when you read them and you think about them? Are you feeling light and open? Are you feeling constricted or anxious? This will tell you if your nervous system is on board with them or not, and if we need to maybe adjust how we frame it or start smaller. Is anybody feeling brave enough to share? It's okay if you don't.
I can share mine.
Ooh, please.
Um, all right. So I took one of yours. So do not respond to non-urgent communication immediately.
Mhm.
And then do not participate in negative office talk / gossip. And then share minimal personal details.
Yes.
And that one kind of makes me the most nervous because I think it's going to be the hardest for me to do because I'm just a very open person. So it would be the biggest change.
Hmm. That's amazing that you can feel that and notice that. And that can just be something that you start smaller with and work up to. But I'm really proud of you and I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I can share mine. Um,
Yay.
I these are for work, correct? I took log off at 5 p.m. Do not check Slack, email, and do not open your laptop. I did really poorly at this year. Where basically it would end up with my entire days on my laptop, checking communications. And it doesn't feel good. So, I think it's just as easy as slamming it shut. And that's it. And I work from home, so it makes it harder, but
Yeah.
that'll be a big one.
Hmm. That's amazing. I'm excited for you. And if it helps to remind yourself that, like, nothing is actually, I shouldn't assume this. I don't know your industry, but if nothing is life or death, it can wait till the next day until work hours.
Nothing I do is life or death.
Yeah.
Everyone treats it like it is, but it is not.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with that, as you log off or turn your notifications off or whatever, if you're just starting to feel really anxious, try a self-soothing technique and remember your why, what you're doing it for. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share? All right, moving on. So now we are going to work on scripts together. So I've taken some that I've already put earlier in this program and used them as examples. Uh, when I first started setting boundaries, I did not have the language around a boundary, and I ended up ghosting somebody really close to me because I could not communicate a boundary in a way that made sense. And it's something that I deeply regret. It was really hurtful on her end for sure. And I found that setting a boundary imperfectly is much better than not setting a boundary at all. And so if you need to set a boundary by text, by email, or reading a script over the phone, that is okay. It is better to set it imperfectly and get better as you set more. So we have a couple here. One is about the unsolicited advice. I appreciate the thought, but I'm not open to suggestions at this time. I'll let you know when/if that changes. But we had a really good alternative, which helps when you get a lot of pushback. That's really interesting. I will think about it and get back to you. That is absolutely valid. And if you need to take some alone time or do something on your own, especially in an intimate relationship or an early romantic relationship, just telling them taking time alone to recharge by myself allows me to better show up in this relationship. And then if somebody's making unwanted comments about your appearance, say I'm not comfortable having my body commented on, even if it's meant as a compliment. And then for one of the work ones, while I'm happy to help out with these extra tasks when I have the capacity with my current workload, I will need to delegate XYZ to someone else to accommodate this request. And so this, we can all work together. So does somebody have a boundary that they need help creating a script with? Or alternatively, if you thought a really good script to set a boundary, please share.
I think I'll just say that I'm interested in hearing how that last one, the work boundary, how it can be, sorry, my dog's trying to get my food. How it can be reworked to be kind of like in a colleague to colleague dynamic rather than like, a supervisor, or like that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can approach it from more of a collaborative thing. Say, I'm working on this priority or this project. Um, if I help you with this, is there any chance that you can help me with XYZ? Or you can just say, I really need to get to this point in my deliverable, and I can help you after that.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah. And you can, you are working with humans, you are working with people. There is that relationship nuance. So it's really important to figure out how to communicate clearly and kindly.
Thank you.
I would love to know if anybody has suggestions for like how to kind of respond and kind of bow out of um, discussions where people are engaging in like negative talk or kind of office gossip that doesn't make me sound self-righteous.
Yes. Does anybody have any scripts or anything like that that they have that they want to share? Yeah. Walking away. Sometimes though we're stuck at our desks.
Who would just clap her hands and be like, positive self-talk only. And she would just like make that as a rule for everybody. And it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. Other suggestions are just finding an excuse to walk away or changing the subject. Sometimes just leaving the scenario will stop that cycle if somebody's not engaging. Or you could just say, I have a lot to get done. I don't really have the capacity to talk about this right now. Or or you can validate their feelings, be like, yeah, that really sucks. I need to work on something else right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for is because I'm a people leader. So a lot of times it's people on my team. And so I don't want to be dismissive of them.
Yeah.
So just like walking away isn't really an option. I can't be like,
Bye.
sucks to be you. Peace out.
Something I do, Kelly, I'm a people leader as well. And sometimes I walk into the team talking about an individual negatively. And something I do is I deploy empathy into the situation. Depending on what it is, if they're talking about the person's their perception of their productivity or their perception of the quality of work that they do, or if it's something about work, you know, I bring into the situation that it can't be easy to be them, um, something like that. I like deploy some empathy, like, hey, like this, they're managing a lot. Is there something you want to take off their plate for them?
Ooh, I love
Something
that.
like that. Or I simply say they're not here to defend themselves, and this is not appropriate.
I like the empathy. That's really good.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Jess. Yeah, sometimes all you need to do is shift the perspective. And even if people don't necessarily see it, it kind of stops that negative loop. Like the other person isn't here.
I was going to add, possibly saying like, well, what would you say if they were here? And,
Mm.
give me your shitty first draft, your rough first draft. And, is there something what is preventing you from having this discussion with them personally? Rather than just like, you're never supposed to complain down the chain of command, always complain up the chain of command, first of all. But if that's, if it's a linear chain of command, just being like, what is blocking you from just having this discussion with them instead of us?
Yep. No, that's
Yeah,
also a really good suggestion. Thank you.
that's powerful. This is powerful. Thank you. Does anybody else want to share or get some help on a certain boundary they're hoping to implement?
If I may add something else. So one thing I learned from being in therapy was that boundaries aren't really for other people. Our boundaries aren't for other people to, they aren't for us to enforce. or sorry, I think I'm saying that wrong. It's the boundaries that we create are for ourselves. They
Mhm.
are measures of self-respect that we need to maintain being our true selves. And so it's because it can get frustrating when you're trying to communicate a boundary and you're like, I'm not communicating it correctly. Or a lot of, I think, people's hesitation on asserting a boundary is their fear of the pushback
Mhm.
and the conflict that it's going to create. And so sometimes it's this isn't always the case, but sometimes, you don't even have to communicate the boundary. You just have to repeat your boundary in your head when it's being
Mhm.
crossed and tell yourself this is an act of self-love by respecting my boundary that I created, and I'm going to walk away or change the subject or tell that loved one, you know. So it's just kind of a way to ease into asserting boundaries because if you can tell yourself, I'm worthy of having this boundary enough times, eventually you'll be able to say that to the person who's crossing the boundary.
Yes, Amber, thank you so much. That was so potent. It is so true. It is so true. The boundaries are for us, and it's important that we know that we can hold them and that we deserve them. All right, if anybody else wants to share, I open the floor. Otherwise, I have a couple other things to say before we do questions and answers.
I think Cassidy wrote one in the chat.
Oh, yes. All right. Frequent late night calls or messages from coworkers and boss. Can't avoid or say no since a call seems urgent, especially when it's the boss. Absolutely. But it usually isn't urgent. Yes. Emily, I love your response. Sometimes asking if it's okay if it's addressed the next day or during work hours. Yeah, usually not urgent.
There's
Are
also
you?
really cool tools on your iPhone that you can silence certain people's contacts or messages. You can silence Slack like during non-work hours. And so sometimes it's helpful for me, at least, as a recovering people pleaser, to shut off my notifications so I don't even have to go through feeling bad for not answering them because I never see them in the first place.
Yeah, removing that can be really helpful. My phone is usually on Do Not Disturb, uh, and I'm very privileged to be able to have that most of the time. Maybe try explaining like the next time, be like, hey, I will not be available tonight. If anything comes up after hours, just know that I'm happy to address it first thing tomorrow. Kind of set them up, communicate a little bit with like, hey, I'm just gonna let you know I'm not available tonight and all other nights, but you can build up. Just communicate that, and whatever it is, I'll be happy to take care of it tomorrow during my working hours. And they might not even realize what they're doing. Somebody else mentioned like they might just fire off or they're calling because they thought of it and they don't have the wherewithal to know that you're like, oh God, I have to answer a phone call from my boss at 9 p.m. It must be urgent. They might not see that. All right, so this covers a lot of what Amber so eloquently said. Who benefits from your overwhelm? Boundary work is not easy, especially when you spent most of your life betraying yourself to please others. So, as you start to set boundaries and hold them for yourself, you may find the voice in your head make it louder, telling you that you're not doing enough, that you need to be more available. Just know that these are old people-pleasing patterns desperately trying to stay relevant in your life. So remind yourself of your goals, your why behind them, and know that you are inherently worthy just as you are, not how you perform for others or what you do for others. Yes, Wesley, the voice is not you. It is the people-pleasing conditioning, the need to always perform and be the best. Know that setting boundaries will show you who in your life benefits from your self-sacrifice and expects it of you. This will weed out some people in your life when you start to set the boundary. But remember that you deserve to have this boundary, and it is protecting your energy, and it is about you. And so it is your responsibility to not only set it and hold it, but to have a consequence for people who don't respect it. And maybe that's limiting their access to you. And I need you to know deep in your bones that true friends will support you on this journey and will not guilt you back into your self-betrayal tendencies. All right. So now's the opportunity if anybody has any other questions or they want anything clarified. I'm opening the floor, or if they had any other requests for suggestions on scripts for certain boundaries that they want to set. This is the time.
I had a question, Sophie. Maybe some folks are wondering about what if these are, talking about the script, what if some of your biggest boundaries you need to set are the ones with yourself? What does that script look like?
Mm, that's a good question. So how do you speak to yourself is a really interesting thing to pay attention to. So as you are, let's say you want to set the boundary of not checking your phone first thing in the morning. When you feel, or let's say you aren't able to stick with that boundary and you make that mistake, how are you talking to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? And what are you defining yourself from your inability in that moment to hold that boundary? And then come back as like maybe think of yourself as a loved one and speak to yourself like you would a child or somebody you love, and just say that you are worthy of taking this time and space for yourself, and it does serve our better goal, and we can do it. And it's okay if it's not perfect, but I trust myself and I know that I can do hard things. Yes, Kelly, I love what you just said. We are only responsible for our actions, not the reactions of others. It is okay for others to be disappointed in our no. And that is something to get comfortable with. And I highly recommend the self-soothing techniques, especially in that moment. You might get the urge to fix it or go back on a boundary. Just give yourself a big old hug and remind yourself of your why. Whether that's for your own well-being or you're doing it for a loved one in the meantime, whatever it is, return back to that. Write it down even so that you remember why you're doing this hard work, because it is hard. We've had some amazing suggestions in here, and I'm just so honored to hold this space with you guys. Um, Moving forward, feel free to return to this material a few times in your boundary setting journey. You get the recording and the slide deck and the task tracker. it's really good to remind yourself why you're doing it and know that it's okay to need help in this. Um, it's it's a lifelong practice, and I'm really proud of y'all for taking the first step, being here and being vulnerable and sharing. This is amazing. Um, Practice your no. Use the self-soothing techniques and feel free to reach out with questions and your wins. I will happily celebrate you in Instagram DMs or whatever, and I will also happily cheer you on or give you a little support if you have questions. Um, I want to highlight something Olevi said. Sometimes it feels easier to advocate for others. I try to imagine that I'm trying to protect a younger version of myself or a friend, and it makes it a little easier to set some boundaries. That is so beautiful. Thank you. It can be a lot easier to do it for someone else, even if it's younger you. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you so much, Sophie. I think I speak for the whole group. This work was so powerful, and I think a lot of people are going to leave feeling inspired, um, and excited for this golden task tracker too. That's really effective at work.
Yes, you deserve to advocate for your worth. All
Okay,
right.
thank
Thank you all
you.
for being here.
Thank you. Everybody have a good night. I'll send you the recording and the deck later on this evening.
Thank you, Jess. I really appreciate all your help.
Yay.